Hello, world. Welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. Hello, world, and welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. We're broadcasting live from the beautiful Finger Lakes region of New York State. It is so great to be with all of you today. We're live on Rumble, live on Twitter, Spreely TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, every podcast platform you can imagine. We're live on Substack, live on Facebook, live on YouTube. The Shannon Joy Show now reaching upwards over 1 million eyes and ears every month, and we couldn't do it without all of you. And yes, it is sweater weather. If you couldn't tell, it is sweater weather here in the Finger Lakes region, and it is not soon enough. I love autumn in New York. It is the best time of the year. And we have a lot of great programming for all of you coming up in the next month. Today, we have Sasha Latapova at the bottom of the hour after our interview with our good friend Don Polano of PCM and Associates, who will be joining us in just a moment to talk about the markets. But you saw the headline today, Sasha Latapova killing it with her Substack. FOIA government documents now reveal, surprise, the American citizens might just be worth more dead than alive, and that is to the tune of a cool $5.1 trillion. Everything kind of makes sense now, doesn't it? Jessica Rojas recently posted this on X, and Sasha Latapova has expanded on this in a very detailed and well-sourced Substack. They tried to hide it. I FOIA'd it. They gave me the link. Page 180 of the fiscal year 2024 U.S. financial report showed how much money the government saves if you die younger. And believe me, they know about it. This revelation gives new insight into the HHS initiative to replace the COVID kill shots with even worse, universal vaccines. Another source of another blockbuster Substack by Sasha Latapova. She calls it the all-in-one and done kill shot. And we love Sasha because she understands the science, the business, and the governmental influence in relation to pharma and also the medical industrial complex. She never pulls any punches and isn't afraid to spar with so many of the powerful influencers who tell a lot of lies. So not only are they, HHS, still refusing to pull the mRNA shots from the market, it seems like they are fixing to make things exponentially worse by adopting and accelerating Operation Warp Speed, right? To find the next generation universal vaccine. And that was in the Jay Bhattacharya Washington Post op-ed that we went through with a fine-tooth comb last week on the Shannon Joy Show. We're going to be talking with Sasha Latapova about all of those topics and more. And yes, she is in my Bad Girls Club. So she is the one of the bad girls of the medical freedom movement. And we're going to be joined by Sasha in just about a half an hour. You guys look fantastic on the live chat. Mav 2022 is with us. CJP Rumble, great to see you. Buskman, Rothan Walker, Be My Valentine. Love seeing all of your beautiful handles on the live chat every day. And of course, we're so thankful to our friends over at Rumble, all of the sponsorship opportunities that they have for this programming. And of course, our sponsors over at Colonial Metals Group. Yes, the economy is in a precarious situation. The news is volatile. The financial news is even more volatile. We'll be talking about that with Don Polano in just a moment. One of the ways, you know, that my philosophy for investing and basically everything is all of the above, right? So I'm in real estate, I'm in cash, I'm in the stock market, but I'm also in physical gold and silver. And the company that I trust for physical gold and silver, of course, and also the gold and silver backed IRA that I use is Colonial Metals Group. Go to colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy today. That is colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy. They have a free gold guide, of course, a free safe for every new purchaser of physical gold and silver, and also a deal for up to $7,500 in free silver. for those who qualify. This is one of the ways that I just hedge and protect my family and my retirement against all sorts of chaos. And you can too. We are so thankful for Colonial. They've been with us now for almost 2 years, and so many of you have had rave reviews about your experience with the amazing people over there. They meet you right where you are. They don't do doom selling or scare selling or coercive tactics. They just give you all the options and help you make a good decision. So colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy, colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy. Now, if you're into the markets, which I also am in, I'm really thrilled to bring in once again Dom Polano of PCM and Associates. He is my financial advisor, and amazingly, Dom, the very first, way back in the day, 12 years ago, with our humble beginnings in a tiny little double wide trailer in a cornfield where we launched the Shannon Joy Show. Dom Polano was with us as the very, what, it's still there. He took a shot on a young plucky girl who thought she could make it in right-wing radio. And but Dom was the very first sponsor of the Shannon Joy Show 12 years ago. He has been with us all 12 years. He's been a regular on this program throughout the entirety, the ups and the downs, the bubbles, the bursts, COVID lockdowns, you name it. Dom has been there, a guiding hand and one of my most trusted sources on all things financial. How you doing, Dom?
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm here in town for a while at least.
Okay, yeah. Also jet setting. Well, it's wedding season for those who have adult age children, and so you're traveling a lot. Dom is the owner of PCM Associates. It is a financial advisory firm, and he is available to everyone across the country. But I've been using him for, I want to say, well over 15 years. For my finances and our family's finances. And there's a lot going on, Dom. I mean, listen, I meant it when I said to my audience, I am an all of the above kind of gal, right? Things are so volatile that it's hard to know and hard to play the market. Like what's going to be going up, what's going to be going down. There's a big debate over the AI tech bubble, whether it's a bubble or not. And we just saw that with the recent earnings report for NVIDIA. We also have tariff pain setting in and international pressures being applied to the United States of America as some of our competitors and our biggest competitors in the global marketplace are now finding each other because the U.S. isn't a great place to do business anymore because of all these tariffs. Everything is very volatile. What do you make of the situation right now? What are you talking with your clients about?
You can't remember too, when we call sometimes terminology gets applied not necessarily in the best of ways.
Yeah.
When we talk about a bubble, what happens when it bursts? It's gone. It doesn't exist.
Right.
So that with AI is not really about to happen. It could be overvalued. It could be overinvested in, and so you'll get a number of startup companies that will just say they're part of AI, and then they may not survive. So that's what tends to attract that overvaluation. I think that's, for example, what happened with the can't remember the NFT part of business, where they would do these coins, and now we don't hear about them anymore. And in fact, Kodak was going to do something with their protect their images by having it encrypted. And there is a market for that, but the value and the worth of it was much overdone than what the true value was. With AI, I think it could almost price itself out, meaning that you've got three programmers and you got one person with AI is going to do the work of one. So it may not be as prevalent as the expectations are right now, but it's still going to be a lasting part of our productivity, I think, going forward.
I think the hype is more general, and even with all of the technological advances and AI and automation, I still prefer to call up the energy company and talk to a real human. I still prefer to go and engage with human beings in most of my daily transactions. The benefit of AI or something that is automated to me is not does not outweigh the benefit of having real human conversations. And I think that in a nutshell it is some of the sentiment that is driving this skepticism of
Yeah,
what,
but the
what
problem is
can AI really
when
do?
the person doesn't answer the phone. See, that's so you want to call up the person and get the information on the energy markets or whatever, but if they
Yeah,
don't pick up the phone and you're trying to get a flight and it says, go to the website because there are not enough people there to answer the phone, or
right.
they have it outsourced. And so in order to get your proper information, you've got to wait, and then your plane is gone.
Well,
So,
and that's in that sense, they're kind of forcing the AI onto us, but that doesn't mean that the preference still isn't there, right? If I can choose between company A and company B, and company B has real people, and company A is all automated, I'm going to pay a little bit extra to go with company B because I just prefer it, right? Like,
right, but there's
and
going to be
go,
a cost to that.
yeah,
So there'll be a cost to
yeah,
that, and that's where the trade-off is.
right.
Do you want a concierge service and you pay it much extra, or do you want a service that is not uh, uh, touchy friendly, but
Hmm.
it's going to be a lot cheaper. And so you end up pricing people out of this situation. So
Yeah.
there's pros and cons of both. And my thought is you can't really stop it. So you do the best within it. And look for alternatives if they're there. But
Mm.
that's where the capitalism comes in. The most cost efficient, best service will be the survivor.
But one of the unfortunate trends of this administration is that capitalism really isn't at play. When you look at the United States government taking a 10% stake in Intel and the United States government providing trillions of dollars worth of revenue or billions of dollars worth of revenue for corporations like Palantir. When you look at Lockheed Martin, for example, where 90% of their revenue comes from federal government contracts, in those cases, you're not looking at a free market. You're looking at a socialistic or even fascistic market where the government, the federal government, under the guise of capitalism, is actually engaging in these types of public-private partnerships, and it becomes very muddy. I mean, what are the competitors of Intel going to do now that the federal government has a stake in making that company, which has never really been that successful or profitable, more profitable? That, if you put the boot of the government on all of their competitors, then you don't have free market forces
Well,
at
the, the,
play.
the first problem came about when they passed the CHIPS Act,
Right.
which was $2 trillion. And
The
so
first
money
subsidy.
was
Yeah.
doled out
Yeah.
to, in fact, in central New York, Micron's got $40 billion in grants, tax incentives, um, uh, loans guaranteed to build in central New York.
Right.
And Intel got $40 billion to do the same thing in Ohio. And when they did this, these companies are making tons of money. Intel was not. Intel dropped from $60 a share over the last 6 years down to mid 20s. So, but the proper thing to have done would have been to rescind all that, but that was just not going to happen. So you've got the problem. The problem was $2 trillion went to companies that didn't really need the money. There should have been uh, 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 some incentives to get manufacturing back to the U.S., which has now come about in the form of tariffs. Well, if you're going to build your product overseas, then it's going to cost you more to bring it back to the U.S., even though it's a U.S. company. So, but to get back to what you were saying about taking a stake in these companies, that was the problem. The problem was giving companies that are earning
The
trillions of dollars
subsidy. Right.
subsidies, correct? So
But
you,
wouldn't the solution now though be to claw those subsidies back and let those companies fail? Wouldn't that be, because now
yeah,
Trump is doing
but
he is, yeah,
you know what would happen? For example, like I said, $40 billion going to Micron Central New York. Well, do you think the people of Central New York are going to allow that? Do you
I
think
don't think
the
there are that
tax
many
bracket?
jobs there. I think Micron, isn't it an empty facility?
There is a lot of jobs. There are
Okay, there
55,000
are.
jobs.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
Lemoyne College is involved in RIT is involved in it.
Got it. Okay. So there
So the
are
thing
actual
is,
jobs there.
and same thing in Ohio. If they pulled the plug on Intel, which Kevin O'Reilly from Shark Tank, he was on a show the other night, and he was saying they should have let the company die. If they can't survive, then they should have pulled the plug. Why give money to a beating horse?
Right.
Well, the thing is, we're not really giving money. We're taking that 10% stake in it. I don't know the full details of it, but
Sounds a little too much like
they're
fascism
getting
to
they're
me.
trying to get something back for that $40 billion. So by taking a 10% stake in the company, if things do work out, then the taxpayer will get something back from it. Okay.
Yeah, I'll
The other
believe that when I see it.
the other thing to address was exactly you made a good point. We're picking winners and losers. So
Hmm.
then there's going to be some backing to Intel versus Micron for this.
Hmm.
And that is, I hate to use this term because it's overused, that slippery slope.
Right.
Okay. But
Well, I think it also creates
yeah,
false markets. And this is my issue with AI and tech. This is the other issue I have. The majority of all the stock market gains that we have seen since 2020 and maybe even before have been exclusively in tech. Like the top 10 companies, Google, Facebook, Apple, Oracle, Palantir, Nvidia, a few others. I mean, all of the growth in the stock market in general is all focused in the tech area. And so there's a great incentive, I think, for the government and the corporate class to create a demand, a false demand for AI and data collection and chips and data
I don't know if it's a
processing
false
centers.
demand because
No one
uh,
wants it though. I don't think people really want it. The government wants it for surveillance. The tech companies want
but
it
if
for the
somebody invents
subsidies.
something,
Yeah.
it's just like Steve Jobs. We didn't need the iPhone at the time. We didn't need the iPod, but once it's there, you see a use for it.
Yeah.
So that's just what happens. You got somebody. We're not going to be stagnant as a people. In fact, most of that technology came out of the U.S. And Europe over the last decade
Hmm.
hasn't been able to keep up because what uh, technology, what advantages have come out of Europe that the world has used? Really hasn't been any.
Hmm.
So that's just going to happen. And unfortunately, Japan, China take our technology, refine it, cheapen it, whatever, and now we're
Mm,
competition hurting ourselves. But so that's I think where we are right now
yeah.
is that we're trying to keep what's ours and spread it. But I do like what's going on in Europe. I think they get it. Their markets have been stagnant for about 10 years, and now it's starting to turn.
Yeah. What are you telling your clients? I mean, I am invested in the stock market. I avoid tech stocks because I do think it's a bubble. I might miss out, who knows? But I like really, really big, boring, old stocks for the basics. And I've also been talking to some people, Dom, who are saying, listen, with this tariff action from the president, and it's one tariff after another, and the reports of inflation, coffee up 25%, vegetables up almost 40%, electricity energy is up even further. And many analysts are saying that we haven't even experienced the full tariff pain yet, that there was a lag about as companies in preparation for the tariff actions stocked up on supplies, those supplies are running out, and that the American people will feel the full weight, 100% of those tariffs by spring of next year. This is moving people into international stocks as China and Russia find new trading partners. India now saying that they're not going to change some of their partnerships based on new tariff threats from president. Like, how far does this tariff game go until we new supply lines are built among our competitors and the U.S. is completely iced out?
See, the issue though is, and this is where the economists got it wrong, because they looked at tariffs as one component
Mm,
and they didn't put together with the rest of the components. Number one is one of the reasons why things are cheaper overseas because they get subsidized by their government.
mm,
So that it doesn't change. So
okay.
when we assess a tariff, it doesn't mean automatically the value of what we're importing and the cost is going up 20%. Many of these products are subsidized by the government, and that's
Right.
what they term as dumping. And so that is still in place and it's probably been increased. The other thing too is our dollar has declined, and many people think that's a bad thing, and it depends to what extent. But our dollar has been extremely strong over the last 10 years. It's outpaced any currency uh, by a huge percentage. And evidence of that is by the travel that we've done overseas. Travel overseas to Europe, South America uh, has been extremely high since COVID
Mm,
by by the U.S. because the dollar has gone so much further. So that's starting to decline. But so those two things affect the cost of goods. A weaker dollar makes it cheaper for us to buy goods overseas, and the subsidies that overseas governments give to their product keep it low. So by assessing a tariff, we're not, it doesn't go up the same percentage. There is a
mm,
percentage that increases, but not by the same. Plus, we're getting that income. That tariff money is coming to us, and that's what's being used to help lower the deficit, which it has been lowered a bit,
mm.
not enough, but a
Well,
bit.
yeah, that goes to my next question though. If we have a weakened dollar, and I would say when, I I would challenge other countries are paying tariffs. I would say the US consumer is going to pay the tariffs and small businesses. And that's, I mean, that's been debated, right? And I understand where you're coming from, but if we're looking at a devalued dollar that is not going to move, in any way, in terms of paying down that debt, I mean, it's 30 some trillion. I mean,
37.
and yeah, and I mean, it's accelerating. People talk about a death cycle or a death loop where with the dollar diminishing in value, the ability to pay down, something like seventy
Well, that
percent
should
of
help
bonds are coming due.
that should help bring interest rates down. I
Yeah.
mean, think about it. We have not seen an interest rate drop in a year.
Hmm.
In September of 2024, when there was a 0.25% drop in interest rates, and that's been it. And other overseas, they've lowered their rate by in Europe, they've lowered rates 10 times. So um, this is important for us to bring our rates in line, and that will help the dollar for one thing, and that will help the deficit too, because as we issue out bonds, instead of issuing out bonds at 4.5%, we'll be issuing out bonds at 4%. That's a savings in funds right there. So
Hmm.
that'll help the deficit. So there are a couple of things that are in place that may take some time to work through.
Hmm.
Am I really confident in it? Of course not. You don't know it until it happens.
Yeah.
But um, there's too many um, uh, uh, projections that are being made with looking through a small lens rather than broadening things out.
No, I mean, it sounds like you are taking the position of probably most conservative Republicans right now who are giving this president Trump time, I suppose, to do things that will fix the economy. When, in your mind, when will you know whether or not these moves, and the audience knows
Well,
how I feel about. One of the reasons I have Dom on, by the way,
yeah,
guys, is because he has a different perspective, and he has a perspective that many Americans on the right are sharing right now about what is happening, and so that's why I bring him on, because I want to hear what you have to say, and I think
the
that's
most
a
important
discussion.
thing that will convince me that this is the proper path, I think this is a good path to take because too many times we attack the solution and we don't attack the problem. So I see this at least as attacking the problem. And I'll know when it's coming to some fruition or it's moving ahead in the right direction is when these companies actually step up to do what they've said. Apple said they're going to spend $600 billion over the next 10 years. Um, Nvidia said they're going to spend several $1 billion over the next several years for this. Once I see that money actually being allocated, Microsoft said the same thing. Then, because these are the companies that are being subsidized with this CHIPS Act, they don't need it. So,
Right.
and so now finally they're being forced to say either you build your product here or you're going to have to spend, we're going to have such a terrifying. So once I see this money actually being spent in the U.S. to do what they pledged, then I'll
Mm.
be convinced. But I
Right.
do think this is a
But by
path.
then, though, we might be in like the digital surveillance police state that, where they like are putting wearables on us and collecting all of our data and using it to control us. I mean, that's what frightens me, right? And I get what you're saying, right? The government is investing in AI and tech and surveillance and data centers, the size of Manhattan, says Mark Zuckerberg, all over the country, right? Manhattan sized data processing centers that are going to surveil and tokenize every physical item on the planet, every person. It frightens me, right? Because the good news about the economy will be that the only economy we have is this expansion of a mass surveillance state, and a lot of people are frightened of that and they don't want it. And that's where I see this doom loop, because it seems like the success of this administration is solely built upon the success of the tech bros, of those who believe in a
I'm
technology
not so
driven
sure
future.
about that. There are safeguards
I hope.
that could be taken, as far as the privacy thing goes and all. Uh, I mean, you send out a letter, it's got your return address on it. They can track exactly where it came from. So you send an email, they know where it came from. Same thing. So I think there's always that concern of privacy, and we many of people have been lax about keeping their privacy, and so
Mm,
that's something that we have to take upon ourselves to do because there are
yeah.
safeguards with the privacy, but we don't take it. Many of us don't take it seriously enough.
Well, I think that that's where we could leave it, because I do agree with you, Dom. I think that there's a lot of propaganda swirling from all sides, right? There's a lot of hyperbole in the headlines, right? About the markets. I think everything is resting on technocracy, technology. I mean, you can see that in the stock market, top 10, it's all intact. I think at some point the culture is going to speak. I think the American people are going to speak in the same way that they spoke very quietly about the vaccines, right? And ultimately, only 10% of the American population are taking COVID vaccines. They're speaking very loudly. The people in power don't really hear that, but the same with things like the Cracker Barrel logo and the overreach but I think that we're going to have to wait and see what the culture says, and then that is going to drive. And I hope that the culture moves towards analog and away from so much tech. I like tech, but I think that there's a danger of going overboard with this, particularly in the power of information. And when information, which is an enormous amount of power, is consolidated in one spot and controlled by very few people, many of whom are not elected, that becomes very dangerous.
Well, there's always uh, the need to for that physical touch. For example, just thinking about it, uh, concerts. People want to go to they want to see stuff live. You can watch something virtually and all that, but to be there for the experience, to see it, there's always going to be that desire, and I think we should kind of latch on to that
Yeah.
part of it. But there's always data being collected, and so when you log onto your computer and you happen to click on a pair of shoes that you like, all of a sudden 2 days later you're going to get bombarded with 10 different styles of shoes.
Yeah. I
And
would like to
so,
see I would like to see legislation limiting that. No, I'm very serious though. I think you're right, but I think it's wrong. And I don't think that we should just accept it as inevitable. I don't think that that's an argument. Well, Shannon, you're on air every day and your face is on a camera, and that means that you should hand Mark Zuckerberg all of your private information, including what happens at the gynecological office, right? No, bullshit. I don't want that. Okay, like that's my point. Like it does not, when they say, well, that's not an excuse. I think we should be saying privacy is
See,
important.
when you take that responsibility and you go forward with it, some people are lazy and don't,
Hmm.
and you hate to see them take advantage of, but that's
Yeah.
something that's a choice, a decision we have to make.
Yeah.
And actually, with a lot of this technology that's out there, much of it is toward privacy. I mean, there's a number of companies that look at the cybersecurity part of it,
Yeah.
and so there are safeguards that are out there. Uh,
Yeah.
Whether we make use of them is the other question.
All right, Don Polano, really interesting conversation as always. About some of the issues that people are grappling with, and I do like having your perspective. You and I always have a really great time and great discussions about these type of things. Don Polano, PCM and Associates, again, the very first ever sponsor of the Shannon Joy Show, still sponsoring us today, and his services are available to all of you across the nation.
My
800-536. Yeah, yeah. What was that?
Have a great Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, you too. Travel safely and stay out of trouble, Don.
I will.
I know.
See you
Yeah.
soon.
All right, we'll see you soon. I just adore that man. Really one of my favorite people in the world. Thank you, Don Polano. PCMPolano.com. That is PCMPolano.com. If you are still in the markets, he's your guy. So he's going to be the one he's the one that I trust for all of my financial decisions. So thank you to Dom. All right, guys, Sasha Latapova is warming up in the bullpen. She is ready to go. I cannot wait to bring her on. She might have a slightly different perspective than Don, but that's why we love the show. We get all the different ideas here, and we're going to be talking about, as I mentioned earlier, a variety of things. Maha with a lot of headlines about a lot of victories. Are they really victories, or are they engaging in yet another incoming rug pull? And that is replacing the tragic, toxic, horrifying mRNA technologies with a brand new, worse universal vaccine. As I mentioned, Sasha calls it the all-in-one and done kill shot. It's worse than the one before. Also, some other great headlines from her Substack. It is the best. When we come back, we're going to continue with the Sasha Latapova right here on the Shannon Joy Show. When Mary and I came together trying to figure out, how we're going to do this show, they were there for us with sponsorship that helped us to put this together and get it on the air. So we are super, super thankful for them. And they have a great new product. I don't know if you guys have ever been struggling, or if you are struggling with mood swings, low energy, or hormonal imbalances. Venus and Mars are two great new products from the Wellness Company. They're doctor-formulated nutraceuticals designed to restore balance, energy, and vitality without synthetic hormones or stimulants. Ladies, Venus supports estrogen and progesterone balance. It eases PMS and cramping while also boosting your energy with clinically dosed ingredients like DIM, maca, Vitex, and broccoli sprouts. There is no fluff and no filler in this product. Now, for the fellas, Mars has a product that naturally increases your testosterone, enhances circulation, and improves strength and focus with tongatali, tribulus, horny goat weed, and zinc. And every ingredient is present in a meaningful and safe dose. There are no gimmicks, just clean daily hormone support for both men and women. And I hear it also helps a little bit in the bedroom as well, but we won't go there. If you are a couple looking for a boost, Venus and Mars will have you feeling like you are on another planet. Head to twc.health.com/Mary and use the promo code MARY to get 10% off plus free shipping. That's twc.health/Mary and use the promo code MARY, MARY, to get 10% off plus free shipping. You might want to consider checking out Rocket Dollar. Go to www.rocketdollar.com/Shannon Joy, and you can get an IRA information packet. You can start investing as soon as your account is funded. And with the self-directed IRA, you can invest in a variety of alternative assets outside of what many believe is a corrupt and bloated, inflated stock market dominated predominantly by the tech companies. So you can invest in real estate in your own backyard, right? In your own community. You can invest in private equity or a startup, even precious metals, gold and silver. They have the self-directed gold and silver backed IRAs, which is real gold and silver that is funded through your IRA. These are all ways for you to use your IRA accounts to your benefit and stop partnering with the federal government. So go to rocketdollar.com/Shannon Joy. That is rocketdollar.com/Shannon Joy. We have a very special birthday present for our favorite birthday boy, CJP Rumble. It's just for you. I knew that today was your birthday, so we made sure to have the amazing Sasha Latapova join us today on the Shannon Joy Show, and she's going to do a special Marilyn Monroe rendition of Happy Birthday.
No, I'm not doing that.
Settle down, CJ. Settle down, settle down. We all know you have a big crush on Sasha. I do too, because she doesn't pull any punches. As you know, she is the Sasha Latapova. Her Substack is a must read, and you've had a lot of great stuff on your Substack recently, Sasha. Just yesterday we saw Jessica Rojas posted on X. They tried to hide it. She FOIA'd it and she found it. Page 180 of the fiscal year 2024 U.S. financial report shows you just how much money the government saves if you die. And it's about $5.1 trillion. Sasha, I've made it a policy in my life to try to be worth more alive than dead, particularly with my husband, right? I don't want that $1 million life insurance policy to tempt him to toss me over the side of the boat one day. Like that's just general. And we've now entered into this really dysfunctional relationship with our government where it really does look like every passing year we become worth more dead than alive to them. And this just proves it. You went over this in an extensive piece on your Substack, and I would love for you to elaborate on that to start among a million other topics.
Yes, and thank you to Jessica Rojas for actually doing the FOIA and digging and finding that page that the government first excluded from the production.
Wow,
and that's a very important page. So that it's in the supplementary information. Page 180 contains this table that shows what's called financial sensitivity analysis. So this is U.S. government projections for the next 75 years. And this model tells them how different expenditures of the government affect their solvency, essentially. And what it shows so there are three scenarios that they're running: low, medium, and high. So they're varying different assumptions in there, and then looking at how the model output is affected. And so it's very clear from that table that no matter what they do, and this is contrary to accepted economic theories or what people really think about this. But the data shows that no matter what the U.S. government does, increased birth rate or fertility or increased lifespan of the population is detrimental to their budget in any scenario.
Wow.
Yeah, and this would elicit, and it did elicit a bunch of questions from people. Well, how come? Because typically we think of it as, if we have a growing population with younger population relative to retirees, then the younger people are contributing to Social Security. So why do we see this effect? And my answer to this is yes, this is correct. If your assumption is that your younger population is healthy. It's not the case in the United States. We have a raging chronic disease epidemic, which includes all sorts of physical disease and mental disease. And my position has been from the start of when I started investigating this, is that the vaccination schedule of CDC is the primary cause of this raging epidemic, especially when we're talking about younger people under 65, and especially when we talk about children. So cancer in children, for example, is 100% attributable to vaccines.
Wow.
No matter of what other causes of cancer you think of, there is not enough time for them to accumulate the damage in a child, in a 2-year-old child. They have not been, even if they've eaten sugar since the day they were born, they haven't eaten enough to produce that effect.
Mm.
All of these effects are coming from vaccinations. And so if 3/4 of your newborns are going to be disabled by the time they're 18, well, guess what? They will never meaningfully contribute to that social security. They will go straight on the welfare and the government dole. And that becomes the net detrimental effect on the government budget. That's what their projections show very clearly. Now, one might say, well, they see this. Why won't they stop poisoning? Why won't they just and you could fix it in one generation. So their projections are for 75 years, but you could fix it in less than 20 years. You
Right.
could, in 10 years, you could
Just
see,
stop vaccinating.
yeah, stop vaccinating and you will see immediate effect. By the way, when the lockdowns came in, the famous data point in 2020, the rate of SIDS immediately plummeted and the rate of autism also immediately plummeted. Why? Because people were not going for their well visits to the pediatricians. And so that's what I'm saying. You will see immediate effect on the health of the population. So why won't they do it? Well, and the reason why won't they do it is because U.S. government is not working for the people. It's not the people's government. It's the corporations' government. So
Mm.
for the corporations, they're making the market for the corporations. Their number one job is to enable the market no matter what. And the market today is pharma companies, big tech companies, defense contractors, and the banks. So those are primarily the markets that they need to make. And of course, pharma insists on poisoning people because that's how all the money is being made in the pharma business or medical device business or healthcare system overall. And it's a huge part of the economy. By the way, the HHS budget is larger than anything else, larger than anyone else's budget, even the defense officially.
Wow. So HHS officially is the largest budget, even out spending the United States Defense Department.
Officially, yeah, defense
Wow.
defense tends to just steal the money, and but their
Black
official
black budgets.
budget, yeah,
Right.
but their official budget is much less than HHS's.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. A little bit louder if we can.
okay.
And we have all day. Well, we have another 45 minutes, so we
All
can
right.
we can really work through these. I don't want to rush you through it. So
Uh,
the question is, stop poisoning. Why wouldn't you just stop poisoning Americans, and we would not
mhm,
have this health epidemic that would lead the government to report that they would be better off, budget speaking, with dead Americans?
mhm,
And the answer is because the government is working for the global corporations,
mhm,
technocracy, and the pharma corporations. And I
mhm,
think that goes to the concern, and this is something that I brought up with Dom in our first discussion in the first half hour of the program, that if you read and listen to the statements of these tech CEOs, so many of them who are now military generals in the United States
uh-huh,
government, by the way, and advisors to the president, and really in a partnership now with the government. They will say that the future that they envision in the world does not involve a lot of humans.
mhm,
They believe that the technocracy in the future is with AI and robotics, that there will only, they only need a handful of humans to do certain menial tasks, and I don't know, provide them with body parts and organs when they need them, I suppose.
yeah.
I don't, I mean, but that this whole idea that large populations of people create wealth for a nation, they're saying, no, we're going to throw that away. We
Mhm,
want small populations of people, highly controlled, highly surveilled, and with absolutely no rights. And then we, the 1%, the oligarchical tech class, will pretty much run everything. We'll run the planet through AI
mhm.
and whatever. I mean, it sounds crazy, but that's exactly what they talk about. People like Chris Yarvin. Is that your sentiment? Have you seen that in your research as well?
Yes, and I also my thinking now is that this whole AI will take over for the workers, right? It came secondary to these financial projections because these financial projections, this was known well in advance of even before computers were developed.
Mm.
So sometimes so these documents about population control and the Club of Rome documents. They go back to the 50s, 60s, 70s. And I think they knew that this point will arrive at some point in the future where they will have poisoned the population to such an extent that it can't be used as a productive workforce. And even the money that they're deriving profit-wise from the pharma harvesting, I call it harvesting of human bodies. And now we're in the era of harvesting of human data and bodies together. So this whole harvesting operation is at the scale that the underlying government structure can no longer support. So it's coming out of balance very, very dramatically. And so they need to crunch the base, and they say, okay, we can effectively harvest a much smaller population. And then what happens with all this other stuff that we need to do? Oh, well, here we have AI to replace what we are going to eliminate. And I guarantee you, this is how the discussions are going on inside the Bilderberg and WEF. And, I'm willing to bet anyone going there, they can, take a bet with me on what exactly has been discussed over these past few decades when they came up with this plan. It's like that, because this is how these people think. It's government. I think Catherine Austin Fitts called it bureaucratic mass murder, and that's exactly what it is. It's a bureaucratic mass murder.
So they speak as if this is inevitable. It appears that the actions of this president and the handing over of most of the apparatus of the federal government to unelected tech CEOs and entrepreneurs, the collection of data, the mass collection of our very, very valuable data is already happening, and it's already now being taken out of the silos and then consolidated. Big project with Palantir to create the data center to rule them all. That was just about a month ago, Peter Thiel. And many think he's the Antichrist. Oh, by the way, Peter Thiel is engaging in a 4-part series on the biblical Antichrist in California, Sasha, out on, you should go to that, check it out.
Oh yeah, he should know. He's an expert, being one himself, right? So
So my question though to you is, how inevitable is this? They seem to know that it's inevitable, and we're just going to go into this new dystopia. No one is saved, no one is spared. How inevitable do you think this is? I mean, they're definitely trying, they're going for it, that's for sure. And they're probably going to collapse our economy at some point and try to move us in, use that as the excuse, the crisis, to move us into the digital food stamps, which are stable coins. How do you think it's going to play out, the timeline, and do you think they can achieve it?
Yeah, so I think time is on our side. They're nowhere close to where they were planning to be. What people need to realize, these people, they talk about things like they're inevitable. Like if you listen to Elon Musk, you'll think we already have, New York City built on Mars. But
They're obsessed with Mars.
So they always talk like that. Don't take them seriously. They are delusional. They're sick. Many of them are on drugs. So they're not in their right mind. And even if they were not on drugs, they're still not in their right mind. They've programmed themselves into this self-created, self-imposed reality, and this is their preferred reality. They have money and resources to insulate themselves from the real reality, and then impose it on all of the immediate surrounding, and then try to impose it on the rest of society. That's what they're trying to do, but it's not going to work. I think the technology is that they're advertising and talking about as if it's already there is not there. Not even the AI. The things that they tell AI can do, it can't. And it's going to collapse. So they are thinking that they're going to immediately replace all existing processes with AI by just installing this AI application on everywhere. But that's not how these things work. And without going into a very long discussion on how impossible this is to do, all of this requires human labor. In fact, even if you were trying to deploy these kinds of systems non-nefariously for good reasons, you would need probably more workers, more human workers, implement it, and importantly to service it and maintain it and update it and do all that stuff. So in fact, it could actually create a labor boom instead of
So interesting.
to do. So that's one of, and that's typically what happens with all these new technologies when they get applied at scale. They require a lot of hand holding. And anyway, so that's one of the outcomes. They may run into this, and it will just all collapse. Now, in the meanwhile, they can cause a lot of damage, obviously. So all these AI centers, these Manhattan-sized AI centers, well, they consume Manhattan-sized amounts of water and electricity, and so that puts, again, that's another way to collapse the economy, is to just put this idiotic stuff everywhere, and doesn't matter what it's produced, it's just consuming so much energy that everybody just goes bankrupt with their electric bills that
Right.
don't go out. So that's one of the bad things that they can do without even achieving anything.
Right.
um, so that's kind, but again, I don't want people to think, oh, everything is lost. And no, actually, they are so desperate right now, they're collapsing. There's going to be collapse, fracturing of these cabals, rivalry between the different cartels and groups, like Trump cartel versus Democrat cartel
Right.
versus EU cartel versus China cartel. And so that's going to happen, and
And that's good for us, by the way.
it's good for us. Yes,
Yeah,
it can lead to unrest and problems and
it
economic
will.
problems, but just keep in mind, this is a good sign. This is a sign that the structure is falling.
Right.
So
Well, and we can see that so much, and this was I had a conversation with a very, very, very well-known investor,
mhm.
and he basically said that all of the smart people know that AI is a complete bubble, that it's literally garbage,
Mhm.
that the tech is nowhere near where they say it is, that AI is a glorified search engine.
Mhm.
It has very little value.
Mhm.
They're saying that he said that the bubble is going to burst. He didn't give me a timeline, but he said
Mhm.
soon. He said the stock market is 100% driven by these AI and tech stocks
Yes.
that are banking on the federal government creating the surveillance and control infrastructure.
Mhm.
So all of the hype and the excitement about tech stocks, it's not how it's going to help the human condition or help humans flourish. It is all in this one silo of government control and the erection of a digital prison and a digital police state. Um, they're going to try to move people into their digital food stamps, which are the programmable stable coins and the tethers. They're going to try to back it with digital gold, which is supposed to be Bitcoin. Okay. And that that they are pumping the profit so hardcore right now because they know it's all a mirage.
Uh-huh.
It's not real. And he said that you have to look at like what the Federal Reserve did just in in early August. They are now looking at revaluing gold, okay? Because the international community knows that the United States market is a steaming pile of you know what.
Uh-huh.
Our trade partners are not trading with us anymore. They're finding new supply lines. They're all going in. The big investors are going into physical gold and silver. They're in land, water, physical assets, cash, their own little currencies that they create. Like this
Mhm.
whole idea that somehow we're going to dominate the future with humanoid robots and nanotechnology it's a fever dream
Mhm.
of the revenge of the nerds losers who have been reading sci-fi for way too long and sitting in front of computers, and like you said, they've been doing way too many drugs and they probably injected themselves with, I don't know, chips. I don't know. I mean, Elon seems off to me.
Uh-huh. A lot.
uh he said the silver lining is that they can't control the bubble bursting. They want more time, right?
Uh-huh.
But
But
they're
they
not
don't
going to get more time. And that's
wanna
kind of
do.
what you're saying. So this is what he said to me. Your thoughts on what, you know,
Oh,
uh,
I totally agree. I totally agree. And again, we're coming together on the point that they're pushing for more time all the time because a whole bunch of these technologies just do not function. So, for example, like in my area, I'm not a very tech person as far as computers and stuff, but in a biological space in the drug development, there's huge hype about, oh, AI is going to make drugs. They invested $1 billion into this Zaira Therapeutics. They came up with some non-working prototype software model, calling it AI. It does nothing. It has not been validated. Nothing happened with it, but it immediately got awarded a Nobel Prize a year ago. And And well, of course, it's surprise, surprise. It's funded by Bill Gates and Google and out of
right.
University of Washington. So,
Did you hear this? He also told me,
uh-huh.
he said Bitcoin, stablecoins, these are Ponzi schemes.
Yes.
Saylor has lied to investors completely, completely.
Mhm.
That's going to blow up in their face. And he said that there are now scandals where these AI companies are lying and they're saying, look what our AI did. It was amazing. And then they're pulling back the curtain and it's like 20,000 Ukrainians in a
Mhm.
sweatshop somewhere, like feverishly
Uh-huh. Or
doing all the work that is supposedly AI.
yeah, or Hyderabad. Yeah, it's like it's awesome, awesome Indians they call it.
So
Um,
awesome Indians. That's what that anyway. They're all in India. So AI is really awesome Indians. That's right. That's what it was.
yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know, and this is not the first time, by the way. So also in drug development, and when I was still working in the industry, and I was working with Pfizer, I had some
Yeah.
good relationships with internal high level scientists who were
Mhm.
pulled and fired from Pfizer, and they told me this story. So Pfizer had a successful drug for smoking cessation called Chantix. Well, we call it's successful because it got approved. It's toxic. It doesn't
Right.
work,
Right. I
but
remember that.
they were celebrating internally as a success. The CEO of Pfizer, Joe LaMattina, at the time, went into internal big meeting celebrating this big approval and said, "Oh, this is example of high throughput screening, designing and developing the drug." And high throughput screening is basically, 20 years ago, this is what the AI was, high
Mm.
throughput screening. So, at which point, the scientists who actually developed it had a cow.
Yeah, right.
They were, what the, so then they came back to me and they said, you know how it was developed. This one chemist from our group went to St. Petersburg to the library, found a paper from, I don't know, 1800s by some Russian chemists, got it translated, figured out the mechanism and some sort of IP-able space, and came back. And then we did everything manually. We tested it, and now Lamatina claims it's high throughput screening. So
No, it makes sense to me. And I think the other area that people freak out about are the nanobots, the injection of nanobots into our bodies with COVID vaccines. And you're saying, yes, the patents are there, and yes, the documents are there, and yes, they would really, 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 really like to inject nanobots into our bodies that interact with 5G towers, and they can control our brain and our thoughts and our movements, and with their little joysticks, right?
yeah,
I know they want to do that.
they want
Okay.
to do
And
badly.
and that's dystopian enough. That's bad. That is bad. You and I would both agree. We would prefer that they're not able to do that, right? But your issue with that, and it's not that you don't believe that that's what they want to do, but you're saying the technology, you haven't seen the technology deployed and actually working, even though they're finding devices in people's bodies, they're finding not so great things, and
Mhm.
there's a lot out there. You're just saying that as far as you're concerned at this point, you haven't seen functioning technology there.
I haven't seen the functioning technology, and it's also not possible for a variety of reasons. And
Okay.
I've been writing about it, and I will publish some more, actually very very interesting material related to this.
Okay.
This is because huge areas of science today are totally fraudulent and false. Not
Okay.
fraudulent necessarily. They didn't necessarily start being fraudulent. It's a process. It's a process of scientific discovery where people find something and they think that their theory is confirmed, and they proceed on the knowledge that this is a confirmed theory, and it turns out it wasn't correct.
And then they
That's
build on it.
but the proper thing to do is to revise the theory and go back to the drawing board. And this is what the good scientific method is supposed to achieve. Now, unfortunately, in the corruption of science and realization of funding by the government only, NIH only, they want to control the preserve previous positions of power and profit. And
Got it.
because of that, they typically will discard anything that challenges the previous theory, no matter how wrong it is. And then later on, they even come up with theories that failed from the start. For example, the protein folding, mainstream theory today is completely false, and it was false from the start. It was known. Again, just like with this AI thing from University of Washington, it got immediately awarded Nobel Prize. This is how they kill the alternatives, by enshrining false theory in the halo of Nobel Prize, and now nobody can challenge it. So since the late 50s, when that happened, all subsequent development in protein design has been based on false theory. It's a colossus
Wow.
now on clay legs. It will collapse, and it is collapsing now. And just for that reason alone, these nanobots or whatever they're talking about, they're not possible, because they don't understand what they're doing in the biology space. They may know what they're doing in the computing space.
Mm.
Now, and this is like this all over science today. And now, what I can say, yes, there are materials, there are nanomaterials in the shots, there are nanomaterials that you can observe, or nanostructures you can observe, or microstructures you can observe
Okay.
in people who are vaccinated. Does it mean that they're controlled by nanobots? No. It means that they are poisoned and injured.
Mm.
And that's what they can definitively cause: poisoning and injury. Yes, they can cause poisoning and injury with radiological, biological, chemical, magnetic weapons, energy weapons. But you can be killed by a gun also.
Right. Right, right. Well, and if you were to inject egg proteins into your body, that could injure you as well. I mean, we
Exactly.
shouldn't be injecting things into our
Yeah.
body
Yeah.
as just, kind of a baseline.
Mhm.
Unless you're hit by a car and you really you're very sick and you need these medications. But in general, this culture of injection is a little nutty. We're
Yeah.
talking to Sasha Latopova. Make sure you follow her on her Substack, Due Diligence and Art. That is Due Diligence and Art. We're going to continue. We're going to talk about Maha and all of the promises, lots of headlines, lots of winning out there by the Maha crowd. Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Callie Means heading down to Texas to snatch away the victory from Mary Talley Bowden. By the way, Dr. Robert Malone calling Mary Talley Bowden, what did he say? She has gone off
Off
the
the
rails.
rails.
Off the rails. Another
Mhm.
dismissive remark from Bob Malone. Meanwhile, yeah, not only are they not removing the mRNA shots from the market, despite all the headlines and Asim Malhotra going out there and tweeting that it's inevitable and it's going to happen, they're fixing, it appears, to replace the poison kill shots with something potentially even worse. As I mentioned, Sasha called it the all-in-one and done kill shot, the universal kill shot that Jay Bhattacharya was celebrating in his most recent WAPO editorial. They are now doubling, tripling, and quadrupling down on Operation Warp Speed so that they can bring this new universal vaccine to market as quickly as possible. Maybe this ties into, I don't know, the benefit to the federal government that there are fewer Americans. It all ties together, right? It's all economic when it comes down to it. But when we come back, we are going to talk to Sasha about her piece. Where is the 500 million for pandemic preparedness going? A sober take on HHS terminating 22 mRNA products with BARDA. Well, they're not getting rid of them. They're just replacing them with something even worse, right? We can't have nice things these days in the United States of America. We will be back to chat with Sasha about that and more when we come back right here on the Shannon Joy Show. I just want to tell you a little bit about my financial advisor. He's been with me for over 15 years, Don Polano of PCM and Associates. As you all know, my philosophy on investing is all of the above. So, you know, I'm hugely bullish on gold and silver, physical gold and silver, and also the gold and silver IRA. I also love real estate, which I can't get into right now because it's too overpriced. So that's kind of a bummer. But I also have money in the stock market, the good old traditional stock market. Now, right now, I am not in tech stocks at all whatsoever. I have very, very boring stocks and some international. And this is what I love about Don Polano is that he knows, he respects my belief system. He shares my belief system. And for what I do have in the stock market, in those investments for my retirement, he takes great care of me. He helps people all over the country and the world. And he is taking on clients, opening it up to all of you. So if you go to 1-800, if you call 1-800-536-1368, that is 1-800-536-1368. You can talk to Dom and get started. If you are unsure of the politics of your financial advisor, or if you're a little jittery about the stock market right now and you want to move some things around, he is your guy. You can also go to pcmpolano.com to learn more about him. That is pcmpolano.com. It is wonderful to have a financial analyst and advisor who shares my values. And that's Don Polano. Thank you to Satellite Phone Store, sat123.com/joy, sat123.com/joy. Without their amazing sponsorship, we couldn't bring the show to you every day. And it's always 10% off for every Joy viewer and listener with the promo code JOY. Why do we love them? Well, among other things, the satellite phones, the generators, the solar panels, everything you need for when the lights go out. They also have the most extensive line, one of the best quality lines of Faraday technology, beanies, bags, blankets, apparel. This is a way for you to reduce your body's exposure to EMF, electromagnetic frequencies. And as we know, talking to Dr. Williams, that exposure can impact your heart health. And so a regular usage of that type of technology, super helpful. Again, so thankful to the Satellite Phone Store, among our other sponsors. Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. We are talking to Sasha Latapova. Her Substack is Due Diligence and Art. Make sure you follow her there and support her efforts. One of the most important and well-researched Substacks in the country today. Sasha, welcome back to the show. We do have some questions from the live audience that we could get to in a little bit. But I do want to go into, well, let's just talk about Maha first, because I'm getting really irritated with this dismissal of Dr. Mary Kelly Bowden and frankly, Naomi Wolf and yourself and myself. There is this kind of male dominated hierarchy installed in Washington, D.C. and HHS. And it's, Donald Trump can do nothing wrong and trust us, trust the plan. We're going to ban the mRNA, but they don't even say it because they're not going to. And they just keep kicking the can down the road and lying to us with false wins. And it's really frustrating. But what are your thoughts about where Bobby Kennedy is right now in HHS? Lots of headlines out there, rumors that they're going to pull the mRNA and among other things. Have they delivered in any way in your opinion?
Well, this morning I had to again publish an article, and I was going to not even pay attention to it much, but I received so many questions yesterday, literally from all over the world, from New Zealand, from UK, from people asking, what does this mean? Did they really pull the EUA? Did they really pull the EUAs for these shots? And does this mean that mRNA is banned? Because this is how it was presented, unfortunately, by what I call medical greedom movement as a Maha win.
All right. So what did they present? What was the false headline that was presented to medical freedom advocates and people who want these shots off the market? What did they say?
Well, so the consistent headline was, EUA authorizations terminated for COVID shots, basically, right? And then, when you actually read the announcements from HHS, including a tweet by Robert Kennedy, what they did, in fact, yesterday was fully approving new versions of mRNA for this fall season.
Yes, they did.
Yeah. And as part of that, they revoked the previous EUAs for those versions or whatever was happening. So it's a replacement. As I said, you can put lipstick on a pig. It's not going to look like Melania Trump. Uh,
I heard she was a man. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, she's a beautiful woman.
I know, I'm joking.
I like her.
It's a joke about Candace Owens and the whole thing. It's so stupid. I never get into that, but go ahead. She is a beautiful woman, a woman.
She's a beautiful woman.
Yeah.
I think she's a beautiful, graceful
Yeah.
woman. I have nothing against Melania. And so anyway, but so in reality, what happened? They approved new versions. Now I have this whole debate now. Well, not debate, but I also got additional questions from good-minded Maha people. I'm not saying that they all control the position, but honest, good-minded Maha people.
Sure.
High profile, again, reaching out to me today. I was responding to emails saying, well, but really it means that these are fully approved now, and you were saying that this is still under PrEP Act. That's they're trying to argue that, and again, I am saying, look, the EUA. The PrEP Act declaration for COVID emergency is still extended until December 2029. There is no argument about that. That's a fact. Once that that declaration is in place, that becomes the governing law for anything COVID related. And if you read the documents, and I've pointed many, many times to the documents about it, yes, it is very confusing. Yes, it is a legal morass on purpose so that there is this confusion and they can continue doing this. But the unconfusing part is that the under PrEP Act declaration is still open. The governing law about anything COVID related, not just vaccines, every drug that's being used, every propaganda piece that's being written, every
countermeasure,
coercion, all of them are countermeasures. And once they're countermeasures, they cannot become fully approved pharmaceuticals. There is no way, because statutorily, they are designated as non-investigational chemical substances. Something is a non-investigational chemical substance, you cannot test it in clinical trials on humans. It's illegal. And they didn't. And also Operation Warp Speed was explicit in their congressional testimony, I think it was congressional testimony. I have a transcript that said on October 2020, Doran Fink, who was then in charge of this at Operation Warp Speed, said, we are switching to the EUA countermeasure route because having an IRB and informed consent would be too burdensome.
Okay.
That's why. So they never ran clinical trials. So these platforms, now they're being treated as platforms. So the platform went on the market as EUA countermeasure. It remains as EUA countermeasure. Then subsequent versions that derived from this platform actually were never even tested for anything. So now, they issue new versions. They don't even bother to test it on 2 mice for antibodies.
Wow.
So all I'm saying, this is a legal fake. When FDA says we approved mRNA shot for COVID, it's a legal fake because the governing law is EUA countermeasures. And by the way, the easy way to test it is look up if these shots are on the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. They are not. They are on the countermeasures injury compensation program, right? So that's the easy test. People can do it. And that's what I'm saying. No matter what FDA says, this is just, EUA.
It's a shell game.
It's a shell game.
It's a shell game. Now, and just to be clear for the audience, Bobby Kennedy Jr. could legally pull these shots off the market by ending the emergency, by rescinding the emergency declaration that was made by the previous HHS commissioner.
Yeah. So he can, and he knows this. The argument I hear back is we need to do it in a way that this cannot be undone by the next administration, which is a valid argument. However, the first step, if you were doing it in good faith and you were really planning to do it, and you were doing it in good faith, the first step is honest disclosure. about this to the public,
Right.
which
Right.
they have not done. And by the way, this is all I'm advocating for right now. I'm not even calling for banning mRNA. I am
Mhm.
saying fully disclose what I just said because
Right.
it's the truth.
Use the bully pulpit to tell the truth to the American people
Hmm.
about COVID, adverse events, injuries, and deaths. Allocate NIH funding to study COVID adverse events, the mechanisms of harm, right? They have billions of dollars at their disposal.
Hmm.
They could acknowledge the victims, they could invest government money in studying cures for those who have been injured by COVID-19 vaccines, and then they could lay out for the American people a very clear, step, one step after another as to what they're going to do to pull these off the markets. But it would
Hmm.
start with just telling the truth, and they haven't even done that. Correct?
Hmm. Correct. And just telling the truth, by the way, would also prevent this. So what's happening right now, they are not telling the truth. As we discussed previously with Naomi, she had a very good point. Their communication strategy is abysmal.
Right.
And this is part of it. So they're not communicating. When they're communicating, it's not truthful. What happens is they're rapidly losing their base, and
Mm,
the other side doesn't like them any better at all.
right.
So this is a sure way to lose. Okay, if they disclose the truth as I just described it, which is how the law is written, if they disclosed it, then even the most like blue-pilled Covidians would pause for a second and start thinking. And by the way, they wouldn't necessarily start a war or and directing their anger at RFK Jr. would also be unproductive because he had nothing to do with this. And
Mm,
he was also very explicitly against this. So my question is, why is he now covering up for this?
right. Well, many people are saying that he knows exactly what to
He
do.
knows
He knows
exactly. Yes,
exactly what needs
I
to be
talked to
done.
him about it. He knows it. Yeah.
And you did a full interview with him
Yeah.
about this, and he needs to keep his job. The fear is that he will be fired by Donald Trump and Susie Wiles
Hmm.
if he speaks out against this. And so they're playing games. And, in the meantime, what really irritates me though is that they are pressing the pedal to the metal on Operation Warp Speed and moving very quickly. And this was laid out very explicitly by Jay Bhattacharya in his WAPO op-ed last week, and then it was reiterated by Bobby Kennedy Jr. that they are moving to this new universal vaccine platform that
Hmm.
has a lot of warning signals, which you
Hmm.
laid out in this piece. So this is now, even if they were to get rid of the COVID mRNA shots, they are already ready and they have the new platform waiting in the wings, and they plan on using Operation Warp Speed tactics because they have declared now Operation Warp Speed to be a great success, which is
Hmm.
basically human experimentation, no liability for pharma, billions or trillions of dollars of government money and funding, to the pharma companies, and coercing, manipulating, and forcing a population into the uptake of a product that they don't want. That's basically Operation Warp Speed under the guise of an emergency.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so let's now use that for the new universal platform. You wrote about that in your Substack. Your thoughts, if you can expand on how bad it already is.
Yeah, exactly. So now they are announcing we've terminated 22 mRNA projects, and Maha again runs around. Wow, wow, wow! This is win.
Yep.
The 22 projects amount to about $500 million. That doesn't mean that all of the mRNA projects are terminated, by the way, because just this week there was another BARDA award to $20 million to this OCVax company, which is part of this universal flu platform, but it is a essentially an mRNA product add-on to this flu platform. And by the way, it was tested now in early testing, and it showed that it makes this flu, whatever they are adding it on to the flu platform, it makes it worse. It makes it more
Of course
toxic,
it does.
and it doesn't work. So anyway, so but coming back, so they but technically they're saying we terminated these mRNA projects. We're reallocating 500 million to this universal flu platform. If you look at this universal flu platform, as I did, a couple of things immediately jump out. It was, for me, it was such a disappointment when I saw Jay Bhattacharya's piece in Washington Post it was incredibly bad.
Yeah.
And this is the guy who I personally also thought was a good guy, honest guy. And when I saw this, I just can't. These people will ruin your faith in humanity, your last shreds. And anyway, so he went and started propagandizing this as such a great achievement, and it's going to be completely non-commercial. Um, just
That
like
means that the government, it's a public-private partnership, aka fascism with the government to create the
Yeah,
new
so he's saying,
universal.
well, now the government is going to be making vaccines. We're back to pre 1970 when the government was making vaccines, all of the vaccines. So they're kind of, turning again to that model, seems like, except I'm sure, well, who's going to be manufacturing it? NIH doesn't own any manufacturing facilities. So, of course, it's going to be licensed to Pfizer, Moderna, probably.
So the
And,
government owns it.
uh-huh.
Government has all the liability, government has all the power, and then they outsource it to their partners at Pfizer, Moderna,
Hmm.
GlaxoSmithKline, Merck, you name it, right?
Yeah.
So it's actually the revolving door that Robert Kennedy Jr. has spoken about so eloquently for 20 years.
Hmm.
It's the revolving door on steroids, like a bigger, badder, nastier, faster spinning
Faster
revolving
spinning,
door.
exactly. So this
Can't make it up.
completely non-commercial exercise is patented by NIH and specifically patented by Jeffrey Taubenberger, who is the replacement of illustrious Anthony Fauci at NIAID. So this guy owns the patent. The NIH also owns the patent. He's
So Fauci, bad boy Fauci owns the patent on I don't know how many different pharma technologies, and that's super bad. But now new guy comes in, he also owns the patent, and basically it's just like a mini Anthony Fauci.
uh-huh.
He'll make a lot of money. Like I mean, if
Oh,
he
of
owns
course.
it, he'll like that's crazy.
Yeah, right. But this is non-commercial effort at all. It's going to be just for the betterment of humanity. And now, so that's the commercial aspects of it. The technical aspects of it, it's a horrendous thing. They're saying it's going to be a multi-strain, so they're advertising it. It's going to protect you from all strains of flu and COVID. Okay,
Bullshit.
so they're yeah, total.
Bullshit.
Then so they're going to cook up these whole viruses somehow.
Okay. Okay.
uh, let's not go into how they make it. It's really disgusting. By the way, yeah, the way they make those viruses, I've looked it up technically. They use aborted fetal cell lines. It's
Okay.
MRC5 and another one. So there are two aborted fetal cell lines that are being utilized to grow these whole viruses. And then the next step of it is they're saying, but it's going to be inactivated. And the way they inactivate it is with this very, very toxic a product called beta propiolactone, BPL. Now, BPL, if you look up in relevant agencies, EPA, FDA, EMA, everyone, they're saying it's very dangerous, it's carcinogenic, fully recognized as carcinogenic, and has a lot of other very nasty effects. It was used before for sanitation of surgical equipment and medical equipment.
Right.
And they stopped using it because of the even external exposure to it to the people was dangerous.
Cause
Uh,
tumors.
it caused tumors, yeah. So it caused tumors by inhalation, by ingestion, and by injection. All routes. It causes cancer.
Oh my word.
Now, so they can't. They banned it for external uses, but they're using it to inactivate the whole viruses.
Let's just inject it right into our bodies. Right? Let's go. What
Every
could go
baby.
wrong?
Yeah, and then they're saying, well, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Next step is we let it sit at room temperature for 2 hours, and guess what? The BPL is gone.
So letting it sit at room temperature for 2 hours, they claim magically gets rid of the BPL.
Magically gets rid of it completely. It's not
No
there.
problem. No problem.
They're saying it's at non-detectable levels, which I translate you from vaccinology. It means we have it about 1,000 times over the limit, just like with those DNA plasmids in Pfizer shots. But don't worry about it because we're not regulated. Nobody will ever hold us liable for it. So that's
Wow.
one thing. The second thing is the thing that they claim it dissolves into or breaks into. They're saying, oh, it breaks into harmless acid that's similar to lactic acid, which is your muscles produce after exercise. Uh, I searched the entire web. I used AI. I used ChatGPT to try to find where was that tested. Where was that fact tested that this particular substance that they claim, it's harmless, it actually is harmless when injected.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no such thing in the world. ChatGPT said, yeah, they tested it by oral exposure, but never by injection.
So we're talking about BPL
Hmm.
that has never been tested in terms of toxicity when injected.
No, that
And
has been tested and
oh, that has.
demonstrated carcinogenic. But
Oh,
then they're saying when it sits for 2 hours, it will collapse into this harmless acid.
okay. And
But
that
that
acid has never been tested.
never been tested.
And so this is one of the key components of the new and improved Jay Bhattacharya approved HHS Bobby Kennedy approved new universal vaccines
Uh-huh.
that they're not talking about. Let's get to some. This is all you guys can see the entire write up and all of Sasha's sourcing on her Substack, Due Diligence and Art. We have a lot of questions and comments here. So I would like to get to the audience. You guys have been very patient. Diog99. Sasha, do you agree with Mike Yeadon? And that's awful, by the way. Thank you for that write up on this new universal vaccine because I haven't seen it anywhere. Maha doesn't seem to care about it. I haven't seen it on Highwire or any of the other typical medical freedom outlets. And hopefully we can push this out and there'll be more research and more investigation. Diog99 said, Sasha, do you agree with Mike Yeadon that the death shot, the COVID shot, was purposefully malicious? And can that be shown? Is there proof that this was done on purpose to reduce the population of
Mhm.
the globe?
Well, yes, I agree, and I actually a lot of Mike's statements are based on my findings. I mean, we've been collaborating for.
Love it. So you've been collaborating with Mike Eden.
Yeah, we've been in touch for all these years. He was the first person who actually helped me to even get my materials out because I had no social media, zero access to anything, and he helped me publish the batch variability data first time in
Mm,
UK in 21. And so since then we've been friends, and we've collaborated on various things. So yes, I completely agree with his statements. It was completely known because he, and as drug developer, and I as drug developer on the development side, uh, we both saw the same thing. We know where to find FDA guidance documents, which is how the FDA regulates industry, and it was very clear. So as early as 2015, actually, this knowledge existed before, but in 2015, FDA published regulatory guidance which summarized their knowledge at the time about the mRNA, about gene therapies, including mRNA class of product, which was always a gene therapy. And at that document, it says explicitly it causes death, it causes miscarriages, it causes blindness, it causes cancer. And,
mm,
and that document was written for the manufacturers who wanted to develop these products to test for all those things. Um, right? And so they knew nobody can say they didn't know. So when Maha tells you, "Oh, they didn't know, they lied to Trump," and and Fauci, and then the FDA didn't know, or doctors didn't know, or this is nonsense. Nobody can, or Robert Malone will go and start saying something. Forget it. Nobody can call themselves an expert if they can't look up a basic document, which is FDA guidance on the topic of interest.
right. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's you imagine some very, very evil monster sitting up in a tower, twirling his mustache, plotting, the extermination of the entire human population. And you can't really go that far.
Hmm.
But you could look to systemic corruption and a profit model that over time has been built to the extent that they can only profit, they can only gain money and power at the expense of the health and wellness and freedom of the American people or humanity in general.
Hmm.
And so it's not an active hostility. Like they don't wake up every day and think, wow, I would love to murder a billion people. How am I going to do it? It's
Hmm.
more along the lines of they just don't care. They
Yes,
they
exactly.
don't care. They
Exactly.
operate in a different echelon. They have seized power and control in our government, and they just don't care if they off a million of you. It's a data point on a
Mhm.
graph to them. And is that what your understanding of this?
Most of them, yes. There may be some few individuals who do fantasize about killing people.
What do you think they are? I mean, if you were to
Well,
identify.
one, people like, I mean, there are a bunch of really, I would say, demonically driven. I mean, not necessarily possessed, but they're in a state of mind that they're so far gone into the evil that they replace their understanding of good with evil. But
Yes,
that's few. I think it's few, and it's kind of the WEF crowd and
mhm,
whatever.
right.
But there's a whole bunch of executive layer of just bureaucrats who are not like that, and they probably, if you meet them in a bar, you think they're a lovely person. They're probably very engaging and funny, and they seem kind and they seem intelligent, but then they go to work and they do this, and they do this because, um, how should I say? Yes, because they don't understand their morality has been replaced with this bureaucratic alignment with power,
Mm,
and they are given excuses. So the structure designed various excuses for them to pretend like this is good. So I had discussions with a bunch of people, and most of the time people who are evil think of themselves that they're good.
yes.
Nobody, like, as I said, with exception of maybe satanic pedophiles or something, the the general crowd that commits evil thinks that they're doing good, and they need to be given these. That's why this whole structure is designed this way, under this emergency, the scenario of like drama, emergency,
Mhm.
hero. Why are they going to such extent? This is very expensive to produce, by the way. It's the most expensive show production in the world that we've just witnessed.
Absolutely.
And the reason they go into such trouble is because most people need to think that they're good to do anything.
Mm.
That's what they have designed, and this is why these people fall for it, because they're given this fig leaf of excuse to pretend that you're good, and they take it and they run with it.
I've seen it time and time again, and it's usually a slow process over time. It starts small, they make one accommodation, and then the next accommodation, and then the next accommodation, and then they become entangled in this web of lies and mistruths and
Hmm.
associations that might not have been. And I just see it happen over and over and over, and then they can't admit sometimes. Then the crime becomes so great, and I would say this is probably somewhere where maybe President Donald Trump is, like, the idea that your Operation Warp Speed produced something that killed and harmed so many hundreds of millions of people across the globe would be far too much for any person to grasp
Hmm.
or grapple with. And
Hmm.
so they have to literally shut down that part of the brain. They
Yeah,
have to close it off. You can't penetrate. And this is why Donald Trump refuses, he will not do an interview. The questions about Operation Warp Speed and the vaccines are off the
yeah,
table. Will not grant an interview
yeah.
unless those are up, because he can't be faced with that.
He can be faced with that. I mean, I'm not even going to Trump. I mean, a lot of, so for example, doctors, pediatricians that poison children every day,
Mm,
they don't, they also dissociated. They
yes.
think
Oh.
that I'm hero, I'm a doctor, I'm treating children, I've dedicated my life to the healthcare, whatever. Same with parents who are taking their children for vaccinations, and
Hmm.
they have poisoned their children, and they won't admit that they are responsible for it,
Hmm.
because that's the most awful thing in the world to admit to.
It is. I admitted to it. I
I
mean,
admit.
I mean, there is freedom in truth
Yes.
and acknowledging the truth.
Hmm.
And, a lot of us, we were lied to. We were
Hmm.
propagandized. We were sucked into systems. I mean, and that's not our fault. The fault comes when that clarity sets in, and then you decide whether to acknowledge that truth, and
Hmm.
that's the hard way,
Yeah.
or bury that truth. And that's sadly, at this point in humanity, I think, the easier way. But we need more people who are going to acknowledge the hard way. And that can exist in a variety of different things. I mean, I said I voted Republican for like 30 years. and thought Republicans were great and Democrats were bad. Like, I was tricked just like everyone else. I
Yeah.
bought into the D versus R, the whole thing, the circus, right? It was only when it became unavoidable for me to admit that these guys are in cahoots together that I had to do the hard part, which is say that on the air.
Uh-huh.
And then I lose my audience. Great, so fun, yay.
Welcome
We
to the
bad girls don't do it the easy way, do we? So we do it the hard. We kick the hornet's nest, usually by accident,
Yeah.
and then are like, "What the heck just happened?" We have run out of time. One last question, M. Garth Hilton, Sasha. Since they are experimenting on Americans illegally, how do we fight locally? And I don't want to hear. He has something to say to you, Sasha. He doesn't want to hear vote for better people. Well, I don't think she's going to say that.
Oh,
What
no,
would you?
no,
Yeah.
no.
What would be your answer? Do you love how this audience like bosses us around?
No, no.
They're scary sometimes.
So what can we do? Number one, say no. Learn to say no. Anything government comes up with, say no. Decline digital ID, decline digital money, decline this whole thing about, oh, another thing RFK Jr. recently said that drove me nuts,
Yeah.
was that we're going to have access to our medical records on cell phones. Absolutely no, and try to get your records sent to you on paper. Deactivate all of your my charts and all that.
I don't have a my chart. I will
Yeah,
not have a
I
my
don't have
chart.
yeah.
And I will try to make my physicians, if I go, which is very, very rarely, but I'm like, step away from the computer
Mm-hmm.
and let's just talk.
Yes.
And let's, and they listen. I mean, they'll do it.
Yeah. So I go to a private doctor who doesn't have a database.
Right.
I mean, they have filing cabinets.
Yeah.
And I'd also go like, once in 3 years or so.
Same.
So don't do any screening tests, by the way. Even if there were some that are marginally when they were launched, marginally
Effective.
useful.
Yeah.
Do not do them now, because the whole system is set up to just trap you. They will falsify those to trap you, and
to frighten you into getting surgeries and procedures that just happened to me 8 months ago. They wanted to cut me open and do a little mini surgery because of a false positive, and I resisted. And I said, no, let's go back in 3 months. And it miraculously cleared up 3 months later.
Yeah,
But,
exactly.
So you got to be careful with those.
Be very, very careful. Only go for any tests or so if you really have symptoms, if really something is going on and bothering you, and then seek, multiple tests, multiple opinions, different places. It's still not a guarantee that, there will be false positives, but be very careful about this. The medical system is horrendous, especially the establishment one is horrendous. The things that they do are absolute crime. And even with well-intended HHS, there's going to be a long time before all of this is solved, because this is happening at the state and local level.
Yes. Yeah.
So
And
that's
yeah, and I think sadly there are incentives for organ donation and organ harvesting, and that just makes the whole thing even more warped. Sasha Latipova, thank you so much. Everybody loves you, of course. They all want you to come back on a regular basis, and you certainly will. How can people support you, find you, and let's close out?
Well, just my Substack, sashalatipova.substack.com. All of my new articles are free. Archive is for paid subscribers. I have now over 600 articles in archive, so it's quite valuable.
Yes.
For $8.
For anyone who wants to do the deep dive on everything, it is so much valuable information. Yeah. You are a blessing, Sasha. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course, of course. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you, Annie, so much for producing the show. You are amazing. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all again right here on The Shannon Joy Show.